Hey folks, WP here, and welcome to my reading that I'm going to do tonight for Crimson Mirror, the novel September 27th that I'm releasing, which is the next novel to be released in the Hierophant trilogy. Now, real quick, you don't need to have read The Ascendant to read Crimson Mirror. That's why I stay away from book 1, book 2, because they can be read in either order, which is really, really cool. And the next thing is that this little sequence that I'm about to read to you is going to have pretty heavy 28 Days Later, Night of the Living Dead energy on it. Now, a lot of those stories and a lot of those movies are basically just that. But Crimson Mirror is so much more than just a outbreak type of book, sorry. And just to help you see this and illustrate that, I've gone ahead and taken the trouble, let's go right over here, and prepared this little diagram for you guys here. So as you can see, it's the pie chart diagram of Crimson Mirror, Nightmare World. And as you can see right here, up here, cameraman, thank you. 28 Days Later, Night of the Living Dead kind of stuff. It's this little small sliver right here, just a little bit. There's so much more to this little, well, whatever. So anyways, but it's like a fat Pac-Man. I know I'm fat shaming here, but I mean, come on. Go on diet, dude. Anyways, enjoy. Just like witches zap black masses, sang Lourdes. The lyric stood out among the others that Lourdes had been belting out since they'd retreated back inside the house, likely for its painfully obvious relevance to their current predicament. She'd started with words from Paranoid, moved on to Mr. Crowley, which wasn't technically a Sabbath tune, and was, at the moment, dropping snippets from War Pigs. As Lourdes sang, Moretti frantically searched the house for a weapon, or weapons, that would suit his highly specific needs, given their foe's weakness. He'd found a suitable secondary in a large kitchen knife he'd found in a drawer therein, a weapon for close quarters. But like the Spartans of ancient Greece, he'd need something that he could use to strike at a distance, that he could puncture a rib cage with enough directed force. He was at a complete loss. And then, by complete chance, dumb luck, or whatever one would call it, he spotted the garden tool standing upright in the back corner of the kitchen, near the back door that presumably led to the area in which it was used. It was an orange and black combination hoe and pick, made of metal insofar as the business ends and interior rods were concerned. But its added "someone's looking out for me up there" feature leapt out at Moretti as if to say, "Come with me if you want to live," in a bad Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. The thing was telescoping, so Moretti could adjust it to the perfect length. He bolted to the tool, and with a quick twist, he had his primary set to just under 4 feet. He spun around and nodded to Lourdes. "All set. Out the back?" "Do we have a choice?" she asked. "Nope." He threw the back door open. There were already 3 of them in view, 2 of them lumbering over the barely standing, rotten wooden fence that separated the backyard of the house in which they'd holed up in from the one adjacent to it that stood in the rear of the house on the next street over. The other had just gained its one functioning set of lower limbs. The other was still attached, but it appeared as if it had been twisted and wrenched in every possible direction a ball and socket joint would allow, which was all of them, at the point where its thigh met the thing's hip. Moretti remembered at the same instant that what his eyes looked upon was not a thing, but had been reduced to as such by the entirely warped man who saw fit to invade his mind, to break his spirit and his heart. The creature before him had been a little boy, no more than 12 or 13 years old before he'd been taken, and now gazed upon his and Lourdes' presence with nothing less than raw, unfettered hatred. "Where to, amiga?" asked Moretti. "You know, it's fucking painful to hear you say any word in Spanish, buddy." "Yikes, okay. Point taken. Well then, to someplace we can really hole up in." So inspired by the child now hobbling pathetically towards them, Moretti began to sing, and loudly at that. "Revolution in their minds, the children start to march." Lourdes smiled at the man and joined in the verse immediately. Moretti ended the child's suffering promptly with a quick strike from his knife. Lourdes split off left and plunged her machete into the one off to that side the instant it turned towards her after scaling the fence. The one to the right was less than a couple of feet from pouncing on her when Moretti's pick flew out in a circle from somewhere to Lourdes' right and caught the corrupted square in the center of its chest, snuffing out its perverted life force. Over the fence, let's go. The two made for the crumbling barrier, and as Lourdes was about to go over, she and Moretti instinctively ducked as an ear-splitting explosion erupted no more than a mile from their location. This was followed by a surge of people screaming from the zero that they had heard for hours prior to what now sounded like hundreds. Lourdes looked back at Moretti, confused but not frightened. Moretti's eyes clicked quickly up and to the right, his left, and then clicked back. Memorial Auditorium, back up at the top of the street, seats just under 1,000 people. They must have used it as a shelter until he nodded in the general direction of the explosion. Guy's mind is a fucking computer, thought Lourdes. We really need to fucking go. Now, Moretti finished. Language, gringo. So Lourdes and Moretti were off into the streets with their weapons and each other. Moretti made sure Lourdes had made it safely down into the area below and had cleared the ladder completely before he started his climb down. He had 3, maybe 4 seconds before it would be too late for both of them. If he didn't get below the street and pull the steel bulkhead door down and completely shut, both he and Lourdes were as good as dead. But then again, he knew they were as good as dead even if he succeeded. Dying would just take quite a bit longer. He threw his terminally dulled kitchen knife and the 2-in-1 telescoping guarding implement into the hole and started down the ladder as fast as his aching, sore, and slow-to-respond muscles could manage. The only thing left pushing them was raw adrenaline. Moretti slipped on the second step down. He clung to the steel ladder awkwardly with the crooks of his elbows while wrapping his legs around the outsides of the ladder. The wave of monsters were just a few feet away, ready to leap at the exposed upper half of his body. The ones in front were by definition the fastest, so also the ones that were in full possession of the legs that had once carried them in life. "Moretti!" screamed Lourdes. The sound of her voice sent one last surge through his nearly spent body, so in an awkward frenzy, he scrunched himself down so that for all intents and purposes, he was effectively down into that golden third step. He reached up to the bulkhead handle. When his fingers wrapped around it, he felt a set of incisors dig into them with the ferocity of a feral animal. He felt those same teeth grind their way to the bone in some parts. With a scream and a howl reminiscent of the same feral animal eating its way through his fingers, Moretti yanked the door down with what was left of the strength, falling off the ladder as he pulled. The bulkhead slammed closed, the locking bolt catching firmly underneath. In so doing, the mechanism prevented anyone or anything from being able to open it without the long, hooked metal rod used to move the bolt out of its secure position. The horde of corrupted had assembled above, the one that had accumulated as Moretti and Lourdes made their way through the streets of Burlington, the one that grew from 2 to 4 to 6 and then twice that number, doubling again and never slowing until there were too many to count and too many to fight, so there was no other option to simply just run. They had ran and ran and ran until Lourdes had caught a glimpse of the open port down into the city's ersatz sewage system just off Church Street, Burlington's main thoroughfare. She'd screamed and pointed with one of her machetes toward the aperture. There! And so Moretti and Lourdes had found their sanctuary, one that was safe from the things growling and yelping and scratching up above them. But it was one that there was no escape from. The room they found themselves in had functioned as a sewerage pipeline runoff area, dimly lit by the dull, crimson-tinted emergency bulbs that automatically clicked on whenever the bulkhead in the ceiling had locked shut. Were it not for them, Moretti and Lourdes would have found themselves in utter darkness. Instead, they could both see that the room was empty, save for the 3 or 4 inches of foul, black, raw, fecal matter, urine, and other excrement that had yet to be siphoned out from the area. It was this putrid substance that was just high enough to get in over the tops of their shoes and into their socks and feet. The stench was unbearable. Both Lourdes and Moretti spent the next 3 to 5 minutes of vomiting, almost spastically, again and again. At last, their senses mercifully adapted to it, and their heaving abated. Once he was able to speak again, Moretti started to ask Lourdes a question he thought the answer to might offer them a glimmer of hope. Will they eventually? No. They've seen that something living is just below them, and they won't leave until they've seen that it's no longer there. Lourdes cut him off before he could finish. But how can... Jesus Cristo, Moretti, they just fucking do, okay? How the hell do you know all of this shit anyway? It's like you've known the damn playbook all along. Family heirloom, Moretti. He didn't steal the mirror from us so he could hang it on one of his office walls next to the other shit he stole. You fucking white motherfuckers think you're entitled to everything, even if it doesn't belong to your asses. Holy shit, Lou. Again with the white guilt routine. Don't call me Lou, that's not my name. Lou's a guy's name. And yeah, again with the white guilt routine. It ain't gonna stop neither for as long as we're stuck down here, puto. Lourdes, you know what? I'm already so sick to death of all this Caucasians are evil shit I keep hearing from you. I hear it all the time, on the job too. So don't think you're the first POC to throw that shit in my face. White people stole this, white people stole that. I know all about it. I paid attention in class. I spent my spare time reading as many books as I could on atrocities as one could stomach so I could at least try to understand. All right? But did you have to feel any of it, pendejo? Did you lose any of your loved ones because of you fucking already know that I just did? Drop the goddamn butthurt shit because neither of us got the time for it. Moretti screamed in her face. When Lourdes saw the combined visage of incalculable, infinite loss, combined with the raw anger and rage of one bent on making those responsible for it pay for their theft 10 times over, she first felt a sense of vindication, then of satisfaction. This last came in the knowledge that although Moretti might not know what shape those feelings took when they came as the consequence of colors of one's skin or the language they spoke, he knew those feelings all the same. And then something occurred to her in the silence that followed his outburst. Lourdes began to laugh. Moretti grew hotter at first, thinking she was mocking him. Oh, that's funny to you, is it? You're a real piece of sh... Lourdes cut him off again. She couldn't help herself because she found something that he just said to be absolutely hilarious. Hey, Poppy, did you just say butthurt? The statement stopped Moretti's bottomless anger cold, and a second later, Moretti began to giggle as well. Butthurt. I can't believe I just said that, he stammered, his laughter growing at the increasing realization he'd used a word that sounded so awkward, so silly, and so unlike him. The sound of his saying it in his ears caused the man to clutch his sides as his ribs began to hurt from his giggling. After another minute or two, Lourdes and Moretti resigned themselves to having quite literally sit and shit and wait for a miracle. Despite the grotesque conditions in which the two of them found themselves, the physical, mental, and emotional toll of what they've just endured and overtook them, and leaning shoulder to shoulder, head resting upon each other's, Lourdes and Moretti both passed out, dead asleep. Just before he dropped, Moretti remembered that Lourdes had replaced the words puto and pendejo with another he actually recognized. She'd called him Poppy. The two of them slept dreamlessly for how long it was impossible to tell. It could have been a matter of just a few minutes, a couple of hours, or even a day. There was no time down in their sanctuary, or cell. Both words were equally as accurate to describe their situation. Moretti awoke first, pulling his head from its balance point on hers. The movement awoke her as well, and in that instant of clarity that came to a person just after waking, when the mind was clear of the debris and of useless thoughts and the mental clutter the waking world delivered, something else that Lourdes had said much earlier, back when they had been in Derek's bedroom. She had said, I had a feeling I should have gagged your ass, Moretti. She had known what was going to happen to him while he slept, and that meant that Courtney had likely done the same to her when he had stolen the mirror originally from her family. It was something the twisted prick absolutely would have done. Hey, Lourdes, asked Moretti. Yeah. Tell me all about your family heirloom.